Good morning, CLC. I invite you in this moment to relax your body, to calm your mind. Take a few deep breaths and allow Universal Spirit to touch your heart. Let everything go for now. Put your day and your weeks aside and allow yourself to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your right hand, and let my words act as your own, for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words. I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. In visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass, in seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and speak these words. I accept. I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and speak these words. I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room with me this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in the room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude and saying, I'm grateful for the good in your life.
I'm trying something different today, besides the suit. It's not a suit, besides the jacket. I have my notes on my phone. I don't look at them, but they're a comfort. You know. So we'll see how that works. Hey, a happy Easter to you. Thanks for coming out today. And those of you who didn't, thanks for watching, being home and watching. And Danielle, thank you for mentioning about St. Edward's. And in the inner healing experience, what I've discovered is doing it. If you repeat a part, that's cool, but don't leave anything out. Because I've done that when and there's an angry murmur. People are like, "What? We're not accepting today?" So, yeah. And thank you for doing that song. That's a Peter Mayer song, and there's a guy named Jack Fowler who has performed here before, and he would perform it at the piano. It's on one of his albums, and it's just a beautiful thing, and it's perfect for today. So for those of you who are new with us today, and I see a number of new faces in the room, welcome to Creative Life Spiritual Center. If I didn't get around to you before the service, my name is Jennings. I work here, and I didn't have a chance then to tell all of you, the new folks with us, that you have come into a center for spiritual living that teaches religious science, also known as the science of mind. If that was not your intended destination this Easter morning, I feel like you should know this. So I'm going to give an Easter talk, but it's going to be perhaps a bit unconventional to what you may be used to. It's also unconventional to what I've typically given over the past 36 Easters, where I've come up here and, well, it's Easter Sunday and Jesus came out of the tomb, and that's a metaphor as well as a historical event, if you believe in fact that it was, and that you can apply this in your life, and it's all about joy and freedom and springtime. And we're going to end there today, but we're not going to start there today, because we're in the middle of a journey. We've all walked into the middle of a journey. This is the heroic journey. And where I left you last week was in the dark. The heroic journey began, as symbolized by the 0 card of the tarot deck, the Fool. It began with you, or someone like you, sitting at home, and there comes a knock on the door, and an entity says, "Come with me, you're needed. You're needed." This story is called the monomyth. One myth to rule them all. One myth that turns up in all of these different spiritual traditions and cultural traditions, not even necessarily spiritual, overtly spiritual traditions, but cultural milieus across the world. The mono myth. Something comes to your door and it comes and gets you and it invites you on a quest and you resist. You say, I'm comfortable here, or at least I'm in familiar surroundings and I really don't want to be bothered. But you eventually capitulate and you go along with this entity, the entity representing, among other things, your higher self, your self-created destiny, the reason why you came here to this world at this time. And this mentoring higher self takes you sort of by the elbow and it leads you to a threshold which you cross to enter an underground cavern of sorts, which could also represent a womb-like structure, or in some cases a dark forest where the canopy of trees screens out the light, and this mentoring energy ushers you into this place and you think it's right behind you, but it's not, and you're on your own. And that's where we left off. They used to say in the old radio show, that's where we left our hero last week, is being you, is in this place. So we're going to reach into that place today and move on from there. Now, last week I was reading in a book called The Last Week. And I waited till last week to read in it just so I could say it. No, I waited till last week to read in it so as to have it fresh at the front of my attention for you today. And we have a couple of copies of this in the bookstore, but I'm really not about just selling product. The Last Week by Marcus Borg and John Dominic Crossan, who were two noted biblical scholars, one from the Methodist tradition and one from the Roman Catholic. And what they do is they break down the last week of Jesus' life, and you page through the different days, and it's pretty much as expected, and you come to Friday, and Friday is awful. Friday is horrible. Friday is blood-curdling. And in most tellings of this story, then you jump to Sunday. You familiar with the Nicene Creed? Nicene Creed jumps right from Friday to Sunday. You familiar with the Apostles' Creed? Apostles' Creed includes Saturday. And I got fixated on Saturday. I even told you this last week. I said, next Sunday I'm going to talk about Saturday. Holy Saturday, a day of vigil, typically in the church. But the vigil is waiting for Sunday. It's keeping watch by the sealed up tomb, waiting for something to happen. There's more going on than that. And these two authors point that out. And it feeds right into where we're going with the heroic journey. It says in the Apostles' Creed, and he descended into hell. And he descended into hell. He was crucified, dead, and buried. He descended into hell, and he rose again on the third day. He descended into hell. What is hell? Did you think you were going to come to an Easter talk and hear about hell? Probably not. But I won't leave you there any more than the mentor leaves the heroic traveler in the dark for too long. Just long enough. Just long enough. In mythology, there's this place called the underworld. And it's not the hell you were probably brought up believing in or being told about. That was a cosmic revenge fantasy. One of the things about the Christian hell is that typically other people go there. There are bad people there, and they're being punished. And George Carlin has a wonderful piece on this, but be that as it may. They're being punished eternally with every kind of awful torture you can think of, because there are other people who believe differently than you do, differently than the narrator of the story believes. They have offended in some way. A lot of that came from Dante, the Inferno, the circles of hell. And he picked out people he didn't like. Of course, at the very bottom was Judas. But he had, I think, a couple of popes in there too, because he'd gotten crossways with them, you know. Well, so the images that we have of this fiery place of eternal torment, it's like I say, it's a cosmic revenge fantasy. And we're better than that. Well, in the ancient telling of this, the underworld had nothing to do with punishment. It had to do with the natural cycles of life. You have spring not only after winter, but you have spring because you had a winter. And you had a winter because you had an autumn. And all things feed into other things. And as we talk about in the winter, all of the trees, all of the plants, everything, they're growing deeper roots. We don't see it. We look at what's up top and we say, well, it's dead and it's never coming back. Or we would if we were new here, you know, and hadn't witnessed and hadn't participated in the circle of life. But we don't see what's sinking down beneath, the roots that are seeking water and that are seeking each other. And there's certain types of trees where the roots knit together and they hold fast against the wind this way. Well, this is what's happening in the underworld. This is what's happening in that deep, dark place. So, there's a device I use in teaching that is a spiral diagram. Some of you have seen this, and I wanted to tell you that a new friend of mine named David LeMaster in where is he? Idaho, has created, well, a couple of new friends. Peggy Keenes created a graphic for this, and David LeMaster recorded me explaining it. So if you want to see this thing, it's an hour long. I didn't know it was going to be an hour long, but I got to talking. And to take us through it, it came out right on an hour. And we're going to have it up on the Creative Life YouTube channel. And feel free to, there's no money or anything attached to it. Feel free to send it to your friends and all of this. But it's a diagram that shows the process of consciousness and how it works. And why I'm bringing it up to you today is that the thing that drives us to a spiritual quest is that we're caught in a closed system. And a closed system heads toward entropy, or it heads toward chaos. You know this in the internal workings of a motor, let's say, where the friction causes an atomic distribution and the heat dissipation and all the rest of it. The thing eventually breaks down. All things in form are closed systems. The chair that you're sitting in is a closed system. It's a fixed object. It does not receive new energy. It's got an atomic distribution going on, but it keeps looking like a chair. And so it's heading toward the place where eventually it's going to redistribute itself entirely, as in go to dust, you know. It's going to take a while to do that. You don't have to worry while you sit here, but you come back 500 years or 5,000 years, I don't know how long, because that chair hasn't been around long enough for us to test exactly what its lifespan is. But all things are redistributing themselves back into form, back into potential in order to come into form. Well, not only is this true of fixed objects, it's true of fixed beliefs. So here's what happens with the heroic figure who sits at home, all proud of themselves for having found a path, for believing something, maybe advocating what they believe, bringing some other people to it. They stop having the direct experience of the reality of their own being. And they're running on fumes. Have you ever run on fumes in your life? Has there ever been a song that you heard that made a huge difference in your life, and you can't really remember it now, but you can remember how you felt when you heard it, and so that's kind of enough. There's like a reminiscent thing, a fleeting kind of a thing, you know. Well, that's what happens in secondhand and third hand and 10th hand transferred experience. And that's why we go on the quest. And that's why we visit the underworld. Because if what we're about in this life is having faith in something, if what we're about is expressing the creative energy of the universe, then we have to shut off all the other distractions from time to time and go directly to our source. It's like if you follow the news so carefully that no light can come in. All you're doing is following other people's stories. All you're doing is following statistics and stuff. And you're like, where did my bliss go? Well, your bliss is behind all of that. You got to tune all of that out from time to time. You got to go dark. You got to go dark. And you got to go deep, and you got to run silent. You basically become a human submarine. You go into this underground place, this underworld place, where it's silent and it's dark, and you're disoriented. And as I mentioned last week, disorientation means you're not facing the right direction. You're not facing the east. When we talk about orienting ourselves, it means facing the rising sun. Well, when you're in the dark, you don't know which way you're facing. You also don't know if you're going to bump your nose on a wall in front of you, so you walk with your hands out like this, like the mummy, But you're in this underworld place where the only thing you have to go on is your belief that you are that. Your belief in the I am. I am. I exist. I can't see where I'm going. My senses are baffled. I have no idea where all of this is leading, what the point of all of this is, but I am. But I am. And when you have that, you have everything you need. Because out of that I am, you can manifest things. You can have purpose and meaning in your life, which is actually better than manifesting things, but sometimes we need the things more urgently maybe than we need the meaning and purpose. I was reading, I just thought of this, but Danielle was mentioning the food event that we have coming up where we serve a neighborhood of people. I was reading about the UN's difficulty right now. So we're having to take food from the hungry to give it to the starving. Food from the hungry to give it to the starving. I want my world better than that. Why should there be starving people in this world? Why should there be? You see? So there's something beyond the manifestation of personal gain that the ancients also knew, which is the manifestation of collective gain. Collective well-being, they call it in Old English the common weal, W-E-A-L, okay? The common good of everybody. Where I'm not satisfied if you're still hungry. My life is not working, my life is not complete. I am not an island. If there's still something that you're struggling with, that I can help with. And there's some things that you're struggling with that nobody can help with because they're internal. You have to come to your own understanding of life and all that kind of thing. It's not about getting in there and, just taking charge of other people's experience. But for crying out loud, feeding them, housing them, clothing them, yeah, sure. So, this is what we're working toward. Well, in this journey, as I say, through the dark, we come in touch with the I am presence within the self, which is why we're here to express, why we're here to be. And we realize the I am never ends. The I am never ends. You've heard it said that to really experience God's grace, you must be born again. To be born again, you first have to die. And the death is metaphorical. The death is you die to the sense conditions, or specifically to the attachment to the sense conditions. And they speak about in gematria, or the science of the substitution of numbers for letters in the Hebrew alphabet. They speak about the number 4 as representing the form of the earth, like the 4 winds, or you've heard the 4 corners of the earth, the 4 directions, 4 points of the compass, and so on. And that we, in our spiritual journeys, regardless of religious affiliation, are all crucified in the sense that we are attached to the form of the world. Are you attached to the form of the world? Well, you probably have been if you're not now. Do you take your meaning from outer experience? That's an attachment to the form of the world. Do you take your meaning from how much money you have? You look in your count your money, and you say, yeah, I'm a successful person. Do you take your meaning from the opinions of other people? You look at your friends or your virtual friends, Somebody unfriends you and you're like, oh no, I'm less of a person because somebody unfriended me. That's, right? That's an attachment. It's an unnecessary attachment. Anything like that where we're taking the defining meaning of ourselves from other people's opinion or the world's opinion or anything else like that is a crucifixion. It's a small death. It's a small death, and a good death. A good death, because it frees us up to be born again in the Spirit, which means to realize what? I am more than a body. I am more than emotional turmoil. I am more even than emotional process. I have that just like I have a body, but I'm more than that. I'm more even than my thoughts. I'm more than my opinions. I'm more than my estimation of reality. I'm more than the testimony of my senses. I'm more than all of these things. I am a being of light. And as you start thinking these ways, there's a liberation that comes to you. And you start to see a light up ahead in the long journey of the tunnel. You start to leave things behind you. You start to cleanse the mind of things. It's sometimes said in New Thought, people, I don't know that I've never heard anybody say this, but it's been reported to me by others third hand, that something like person A, had something befall them. And helpful person B, helpful New Thought student B, said to New Thought student A, so why did you create that in your life? You with me? Okay. What were you thinking? Why would you choose that? There's a long, rich tradition of that kind of thing. And I just say, maybe I've not been paying attention, but I've not actually heard that happen between two people in my hearing, or I would have bravely stepped in. Okay? But there's a long, rich tradition of that, because when Jesus was hanging on the cross, they came to him and said, so, Son of God, huh? Son of God, oh, you're going to build the temple back up? Really? How's that going to work? This is the kind of thing that you leave in the underworld. This opinion that the world has, the snarkiness, the sarcasm. I told you last week or the week before about the story about the Buddha and how the last temptation that he was faced with when he sat under the Bodhi tree, waiting for enlightenment, was, who do you think you are? Not wealth or glamour or fame or power or any of the stuff you might think, but who do you think you are? To be sitting here waiting for enlightenment. Get a job. Buy a car. Get up. Go do something, What do you, yeah. And that was the hardest of all of the temptations, was to fall into that, where he's back to thinking, I'm a body. I'm a mind, I'm emotions, and diminishing himself, instead of the mind that made a star is the same mind that I use. So my point in telling you all of this is in the point of the whole heroic journey, is that this is not something that happened to somebody a long time ago that isn't it interesting and now we can close the book, put it back on the shelf. No, this is your journey. Not because I say so, but simply because you can see that it is. If you start looking at your life in the way of these different phases of experience, think about the last time something came and got you and said, I need you to be more than you seem to be. And you were like, nah, I'm kind of busy today. I'm rearranging my sock drawer or something. And it says, no, you've got to. And then the mentor, big betrayal, the mentor leaves us. The disciples, Jesus' disciples were like, he can't be leaving us. What are we going to do? He promised he would be here. Never mind that they've fallen asleep, just wandered around. One of them actually apparently sold him out, although there's some question about that now, as that may have been actually staged. He may have needed somebody. Kind of makes sense, and I'm not advocating a conspiracy theory here, but it kind of makes sense in a way that how else was he going to get sold out? And so he went to one who was not the weakest, but the strongest, and said, you're not going to like what I'm going to ask you to do, because I'm going to be the hero in this story, and you're going to be the villain forever. And in a few hundred years, a guy named Dante is going to come along and consign you to the deepest pit of hell, and there you're going to stay. Are you really up for this? How much do you love me? How much do you love me? It's an interesting, I can't tell you it's true or not, but it's been written up, but it's an interesting thought, isn't it? All right, so we go through this, and this underworld. There's a whole magic and a whole, you could read, I could talk to you for days about the underworld. Because I've been there more than once. All of us have. And it's sent me on a journey of research in history and philosophy and mythology and so forth. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train coming the other way. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and this is the crack in the opening to the tomb. You come up from underground out of the tomb, and you're dazzled by the light. Dazzled by the light of the new day, of the rebirth. Because when you know that you're not a body, when you know that you're not just thoughts, you're not just emotions, you're not just a past, when you know all these things, you get them all back. But they've been dry cleaned. They've been pressed. Remember the Wizard of Oz, when they get to Oz, and the Tin Man's buffed, and the Scarecrow's restuffed, and everybody's spruced up. Put some makeup or something on Judy Garland, and everybody's all, well, you get it all back. And it's fresh and new, and it'll stay fresh and new as long as, here's the payoff, as long as you willingly revisit the underworld on a regular basis to let everything go. Or as our friend Alan Watts is famous for saying, the great Buddhist teacher, you should go out of your mind at least once every day. Maybe once a day is a heavy program, but periodically, let it all go. I am not my beliefs. I am not. So who am I? I am. I am. On this Easter, I wish and know and affirm for you and your loved ones and everyone in Christendom, the Pope, the Catholic Church, all the Protestant churches, the streets are lined with them. You drove past 6, 8, 10, 12 on your way here this morning, and it's an honor that we never forget that you chose to park here, come in these doors. And the other day, somebody said, I got an email, and somebody said, well, I had a friend at Creative Life, brought a friend to Creative Life, and they loved all the symbols of the world faith traditions on the wall, but they didn't see Christianity. Are we like opposed to Christianity? To see Christianity in here, you got to turn around, because you came in through it. And it's the only faith system that's represented twice in this room. We have the Eastern Cross and the Latin Cross. And the reason, this was deliberate. It wasn't like, oh, I don't know, just put them up anywhere. The reason those sit at the back of the room is because it's through that portal that most of us came. Not all of us, but most of us. And so that story of redemption, that story of transfiguration, a story of upliftment, it's a story that lives as metaphor for everyone across the planet, regardless of religious affiliation, regardless of anything, because of the great I am. I am. So just in your spiritual work, be open to letting go as much as you are to taking in. As much as you are to manifesting and creating and doing all of this empowered stuff that we learn to do and that we love doing. Even in the midst of this springtime, it's all around us. We see everything bursting into form. Be willing to let go. Be willing to let go of some things, like your opinion of reality, because I promise you, reality is greater than any opinion we could possibly have of it. So let's know together now, there is one life, one power, one presence. And we know this power and this presence by how it feels within us. We know it by how it conducts us up to the place where we must step in on our own. And it meets us at the other end. The other end of that dark and silent and deep journey, it meets us not as a mentor, but as a peer, as an equal in knowledge and its application, understanding. I affirm and know for each one of us here a rebirth this day, coming out into the light of the new dawn. And there will be astonishment. There'll be an angel there whose wings are enormous, whose countenance is daunting. And that angel is a representation of what we're on our way to being ourselves. But we have budding wings. We have a glistening halo called an aura. It's simply the field of energy, etheric and astral, that surrounds the form that we wear. And so everything that we perceive on the spiritual journey and in the spiritual literature, the sacred writings of the world, everything that we encounter is the story of each one of us and where we are and where we are heading in the love, in oneness, in truth. For this knowing, and the way that it shows up in form, through every one of us, I am so deeply grateful. I am grateful for the example of Jesus the Christ, Yeshua ben Yosef, and all the reverence paid to him down the centuries. I'm grateful for the experience of finding a way in the wilderness into the promised land, moving from bondage to freedom, to self-empowerment, And finally, I affirm and know that every hungry person on this planet is fed. As we are told, the multitude were fed. However it shows up, whether out of thin air or it's brought by human hands, it shows up. And it fills them up. Thank you, infinite presence of life, Mother, Father, God, that this is so, and so it is.
So it is. I can wait on you. I'm all right with that. Good morning. Oh, good morning. Yeah, you can see. It's Easter. Hey, we're having fun. It's whatever comes out, comes out. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mel, Brian, and Jeffrey. That was beautiful. It was so wonderful. And thank you, Jesse, for that wonderful talk, too, as well. That was fantastic. I know I, for one, needed that. I don't know about you guys, but I needed that this morning. So thank you. I appreciate that. And now, as we come to giving time, and our ushers make their way to the back, I see David holding up some, what is that I'm supposed to? Huh? Oh, yeah, I was about to say that. That's exactly what I was about to say. Thank you. If you are here for the first time, please raise your hand. We have a gift that we would like to give you. So if you're in the room and you're here for the first time, please raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, keep your hand up. Reverend David is coming around to give you a special gift from us. So thank you for being here. Everyone else who is here and have been here before, thank you for joining us yet again. We are grateful to see you. We are very grateful that we have, oh, yeah, up here. You forgot one. Right here, right by Frank. There you go. We want to thank each and every one of you for being here and being a part of this service. And with that, now we come to giving time. We also want to thank you for your loving energy, for your presence, for your donations to this center. It's because of you that we can be here and share this message. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for giving of your time, of your energy, of your love, of your money. We appreciate it. And I invite you now to say with me, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
I'm going to give you a brief reminder that Jesse's leaving you hanging. He's not going to finish up the heroic journey. He's not. He left you at the threshold. That means that I get to bring you home. So I've been furiously taking notes as things occur to me, going, oh, well, what about this? What about this? But one of the things that I will tell you is there have been a number of authors who have written about the dark night of the soul. So please avail yourself of those books. I even did a workshop-ish on the dark night of the soul, and it's definitely worth revisiting once, twice, 3 times, a dozen times. And you quoted Alan Watts, and I will quote a shaman that I met whose name I can only tell you is Nick. And what he says is that you have to, Nick, I met him years ago. That's all I remember is his name is Nick. But what he said that has always stuck with me is you have to go out, you have to lose your mind to come to your senses. So, in that, and in the Easter, I invite you into the sacred space that you never truly leave, because it's all sacred. It's up to us to let the scales fall from our eyes, to look around with the new eyes, especially as we walk out into the sunlight, to see the miracles that happen every day, to see the glory that is written in the flowers, in the trees, in the song of the bird, to see heaven on earth here around us. And sometimes it takes us going into the dark to see that. So, know with me that there is one life, one power, one presence, one love. And each and every one of us are a part of that love. We live that life. That power flows through us. We are the channels in which this love enters this material reality. And what is ours to do but to love? So on this Easter day, I invite you to go out and love. Love with your whole heart, love with your whole being, love with your whole soul. Because the soul that you love with is bigger than anything else. Because it is God's soul that we love with. We are God in action now. So as you walk away from that tomb and spread the good news, know who you are. A beloved child of God, a channel of God's love on this earth. And I know this with all of the gratitude in my being. And I am grateful for each and every one of you for the bright and brilliant loving lights that you are. I am grateful for this teaching that teaches us who we are. I am grateful for this place where we come together to know. And I am grateful for our ministers and our musicians and our practitioners and you. And I release my word into law, knowing it is done. And so it is.
So it is.
Say it with me now. Something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust
I
it.
use it.
I use
And
it.
what else? I love it. And so it is.
And so it is.